Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwellynn Show today. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got the amazing Matt Shamus with us today. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. So I'm not going to go through your old profile because I'm pretty sure you can do a way better job than I can in terms of telling our Dwell listeners a little bit more about yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, sure. So I am a real estate sponsor and syndicator. So we pool money from individual investors and buy bigger and better assets than any one of us can buy on our own. I have a background, I'm in California in the Bay Area. I have a background in the tech world. I used to work at Facebook. I did a couple technology startups that I founded before going to Facebook. I actually worked on the original Facebook for iPhone app back in 2012 and had a great time there. And now I'm a full-time real estate investor. So that's what I'm up to.
Wow. So I can hear our Dwell listeners, myself included, screaming in my car if I was driving or wherever in the gym, like, wait, you left a job at Facebook. Pretty much everybody or every millennial wants to work at Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever. How can you do that? How can you leave such an amazing or, perceived amazing job to go into this thing called real estate? Who does that?
Yeah, not many people, but I think so. I am pretty self-directed and entrepreneurial. So I worked at Facebook for 6 years, but I kind of always knew that I would be moving on from there at some point. Honestly, 6 years was longer than I expected to be there. And it was really one of my only real jobs. Most of the things that I've done in my life have had some kind of entrepreneurial, component. And so real estate investing, I kind of started getting interested in early on. I had my real estate license when I was 19. I got my license and I ended up selling my mom's home, the childhood home that I grew up in. And she made a really nice profit on it. And that was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me. I went off to college and I studied economics and took whatever real estate courses I could and read a lot of books. One thing about me is that I'm pretty analytical, as you might imagine, being, kind of with a tech background. And what that can lead to, it can be a great asset as a real estate investor, but it also can lead to, analysis paralysis, where you really just continue to consume information and educate yourself past the point that you really need to. So I definitely was guilty of that. But I started buying single family homes during my time at Facebook, actually. And my original intention was, I'm going to buy 1 or 2 homes a year. And by the time I'm 40 or 50 years old, I'll still be relatively young, but my financial landscape will be significantly improved. And I kind of threw that strategy out the window a couple of years into it when I realized, if I can do 1 or 2 houses a year, why can't I do 5? And then why can't I do 10 a year? And so I kind of shifted my mindset to, how do I add a 0 or 2 to everything that I'm doing? But the problem with that was I just didn't see myself in the future owning and managing 100 or 200 single family homes. I wanted to do something with a little bit less volume and a little bit more scale and be a little bit more diversified. So that's when I started thinking a little bit more about commercial properties, including multifamily, but not exclusively multifamily. And so that's the direction that our business is taken now. And the reason I left Facebook was I was more excited about what I was doing with real estate. It's where my passion lies. It's where I spend, my weekend hours and my nighttime hours when I'm not with my kids and my family. And it's just what I get excited about. It doesn't feel as much like working to me as you would expect, a job to feel. And so I'm blessed and lucky to have such a tremendously supportive wife, Amy, who has a great job herself. And so we have we have great health benefits through her through her work, and she's just so supportive of me, doing and spending time on what I'm passionate about. So it felt like the right moment to leave Facebook, and it felt like that I had a pretty clear path forward with full-time real estate investing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really like that. You made a lot of really great points, actually. Definitely about your wife being extremely supportive, but also the fact that as an entrepreneur, you might not have that, solid healthcare, plan, right? If you're just starting out sometimes. So I think that's really important that you brought that up. I would definitely want to go back to one thing you did say though, analysis paralysis, right? So if if a Dwell listener is, listening to our conversation here, and they're thinking, well, I feel like I'm in that step, right? I'm going to all the meetups. I'm reading all the books. I'm listening to all the podcasts like mine. But I haven't pulled the trigger. I haven't bought a deal. So how did you come out of that phase? And what would you say to someone that is in that phase and maybe telling themselves, oh, I haven't got the right deal yet, or I haven't got money yet, or whatever? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I answer that, let me just mention one more thing because I think this will be relevant. When I told my colleagues that I was leaving Facebook, there were two very distinct reactions from people. The first reaction was, wait a minute, like, how do you leave Facebook? Don't you know the world revolves around Facebook? Insert any company for Facebook. Right? It's very easy to feel like what you're doing is the most important thing in the world. And I think that is a particularly acute feeling for people in Silicon Valley, for better or worse. But the more interesting reaction, this was fewer people, and it was stronger from people that were a little bit older. Their reaction was, that is so cool. I wish I could do that. I wish I had that opportunity. I wish I could go move away from this work. I wish I didn't have the grind. And so I just thought that was a really interesting moment for me to realize, I do have this kind of what many people think of as a dream job, but even a lot of the people, in an environment like this are think about doing something entrepreneurial, but don't necessarily have, it doesn't feel like the right moment for them to do it, or they just never will for whatever reason. So that does actually lead into your question about analysis paralysis and just taking action. I think you definitely want to be educated before you take action. I would not encourage anyone to go out and just learn everything by doing. I think you need to have a baseline level of education. But there are so many ways. Real estate is a business that is partnership and relationship driven. So there are so many opportunities for someone to come in and add value to another person that may be further along in their investing path, and do it in a way that is very, very low risk for you. So I think I would open my mind to, what are those opportunities? Are there people that I know or that I'd like to know that I feel like I might be able to help and I can learn at the same time? I think one of the ways that I've seen people do this successfully is invest in a deal where you can be passively investing, but where you have kind of front row access to the puppeteer pulling all the strings. And we have a few investors that do this with us. One thing about real estate investors is we like to talk about what we're doing, and because that's what we're excited about. So if you can get access to a couple deal sponsors that are actively investing in deals, and you can ride along with them as a passive investor, you're going to learn a tremendous amount, and you're not going to be on the hook for making the operating decisions, but you're going to see exactly how the sausage is made. And then you're going to get a feel for, do I actually want to go do this? Or do I want to continue to invest passively? Do I like how this person communicates to me? Do I think the strategy that they've taken is the right one? Would I have done something different? I think that's a great opportunity that's a little bit overlooked by people. Yeah,
definitely. That's such a great point, because the notion of living your day job, and in your case, just not any day job, a tech job in Silicon Valley, is quite polarizing. And like you said, you get kind of like two disparate, reactions, right? So for you at the time anyway, even though you had that, the two reactions, your passion looked like, outweighed, whatever the world was telling you to do, or maybe to kind of lean towards. So I think that's probably what helped you, right? Because you just loved talking about real estate, right?
Yeah, at that point when I made the decision, it didn't matter what anyone was going to say. It wasn't going to sway me. I already, had the support of my wife. We'd already talked about kind of a plan. And it was just about, having the courage to actually step away and say, you know what, the worst case scenario is a year or 2 years from now, this hasn't worked out and I'm back looking for a job. And I felt, very confident in my ability to go do that. In the meantime, now I feel even, I know I'm not going to go back and get another job, and that's fantastic. And the amount of progress that I've been able to make since leaving and doing real estate investing full time is something that it would have taken me years to achieve what I've achieved. And so I think that's an important thing too. Is for me and my personality type, some people can kind of do this on the side. And want to do this on the side forever. My approach is that I think you get a lot more out of just diving into the deep end and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go do this with everything I have, and there's no option. I have to go succeed here. That's for me, and that's served me well so far. I don't think that is necessarily the approach for everyone, but if that feels like intuitively like the right thing for you to do, I would explore it. If you're considering leaving a full-time job.
And you did explore it, and you mentioned that while you were at Facebook, you were buying single family, and then obviously you then graduated into larger commercial assets. My question, however, is there's a lot of talk on, or a lot of perception that you kind of have to start small and then kind of grow into these bigger assets. Of course, you've done both now. So based on what you know now, would you have just kind of started straight in commercial, or do you think kind of your time buying smaller houses really helped, fuel that transition quite smoothly?
I think starting with single family homes and starting, very hands-on the way I did, it was helpful for me. I like to be in control of the situation. I like to feel like I understand how the mechanics work. So I think for my personality, it was really helpful to do everything, kind of from the ground up. And starting small was really the only feasible way for me to do that. So I think it was necessary. I don't think it's critical for for anyone else in particular, but for me, I think it was the right approach. And I just was able to slowly develop my confidence and my skill set. And the reality is, moving from single family homes to apartments, there are different dynamics, making that transition for sure. But at the end of the day, the biggest difference is the amount of money changing hands, and the amount of money that the transaction might take to close. The mechanics are roughly the same. You have housing that you're providing for people, and you do renovations in a similar way. It's not a completely different world. But so I think my experience in single family homes originally was definitely helpful.
All right, so you definitely started. So can you maybe pick up a deal that you really like? Maybe you learned a ton, or maybe you made a lot of money, or you helped a lot of people. Just pick a case study that we can kind of dive into.
Yeah. So, well, first, let me just mention one way that we're unique is we don't focus on a particular asset class or a particular geography. We want to be diversified across asset classes and across regions. And I have a partner, Dan, who's in LA, and we are first and foremost investing our money for our own account. So we are looking at building a diversified portfolio for ourselves, and our investors can ride along with the decisions that we make in opportunities to, deals to invest in. So that's kind of like the foundation for how we think about things. What that means is we need strong partnerships with people in different regions and and operators of different asset classes. We're not going to rely on ourselves to be the expert in all regions and all asset classes. So we started kind of emphasizing multifamily. And the thing that we realized was we have closed a few multifamily transactions, but multifamily is in a place right now where cap rates are very low, prices are very high, and upside is limited. And I just feel like our thesis is not going to be winning bidding wars. What we want to do is we're more value investors. We want to be buying a property at the right price and to feel very, very confident that we can improve the operations and improve the cash flow without every single little thing going our way. So we want to have quite a bit of meat on the bone when we purchase something. And with all of the interest in multifamily these days, that's becoming harder and harder to do. So what we wanted to do was be dangerous enough, knowledgeable enough to be dangerous on other asset classes. And we don't want to pass up a great opportunity on a medical office building, for instance, just because we don't understand it. So that led us down the path of, how do we actually understand multiple asset classes and build a portfolio that, that we think is pretty resilient, despite whatever the economic conditions are. But to answer your original question, our first deal that we purchased was a multifamily property. It was actually relatively new construction. It was built in 2017. It was an off-market deal. And Class B property, nice, solid, working class location, like above the median for the area. But despite being new construction, it wasn't a Class A property, but very nice. And that deal was, we have an 8% preferred return. And rents were $700 a month when we bought the property. We've pushed them to about $800 a month since then, and there's still room to improve. But we bought it at like an 8.5 cap. So those are the kinds of deals that we're looking for, and we're comfortable passing lots and lots of deals in order to find very few deals that have those kinds of characteristics, where we know that even if we come down to 80% occupancy, which would be extremely low, we're still able to cover our cash flow. We know that we think a recession is coming at some point. And so everything that I'm looking at today is through the lens of how is this going to perform during a recession, and how do we make sure that we are in a position to succeed and withstand the storm, knowing that one will probably come. If one doesn't come, then we're still in good position. We gave up a little bit of upside potentially because we were more conservative, but I'm much more focused on, first preserving our capital and our investors' capital. And then next, once we feel like we understand the downside and the risks, then how can we then and only then maximize the return?
Matt, you got me thinking a lot, actually, because we've been told, right, by this world that we have to be niche. You have to be a particular person. You have to be a programmer. You have to know SQL, or you have to know HTML. Like, everything that we've been told is that you have to have a niche. You have to focus on something. You can't be a lawyer and I don't know, like tennis. I mean, that's ridiculous, but it just sounds that way, right? And just like listening to you, saying I want to, invest in, nationwide across asset classes, I'm just like, wow, that's not what we've been told on podcasts, on, some mentorship programs that we're part of. So it's just really radical, yet so engaging and refreshing. So, from what you guys are doing, I just kind of want you to, I know you've explained it a little bit, but what have you started seeing so far in, with this approach that you're taking? I know you have to have, really strong relationships with not just brokers, but other syndicators across the country. But what are you seeing, taking this unconventional approach?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that that you mentioned that it is unconventional, because you're right. It is in some ways, that because I don't think there's anything wrong with finding a niche and then exploiting it. The problem for me is to me that approach feels like short term, a short term investment. And so personally, I'm not interested in owning all of my assets in Dallas Fort Worth. Like I'm not going to specialize in C-class properties in Dallas Fort Worth. That's a great asset class, and it has been for for many years, and many people have made a lot of money only doing that one thing. And I think there's a lot of value in that approach. But what I have said, my approach is, I want to build a portfolio, and that portfolio has to have some diversification, and it needs to be a long-term portfolio. So I'm less interested in exploiting a particular niche, and I'm more interested in, do I want to own this investment for the next 10 or more years? And do I think the dynamics of this region and the dynamics of this asset class are such that it's likely to be a good investment over a longer time frame? And so I'm focused on a little bit longer. I have a little bit of a longer mindset probably, and I have a little bit more less tolerance for risk. So it just led me down this path of diversification. And the great thing about it is, we can partner with other operators or other people who are experts at what they do, and we don't have to be that expert because ultimately that's who we're investing with, is other people. But we don't need to be the experts on the nuts and bolts of any particular market. And I think there's a lot of value in that if you're trying to build a business that's that wants a little bit of scale.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So we're definitely dwelling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick answer. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's do it. So first question, what makes you, Matt, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
I think me personally, I kind of, I played football in college, and one of the terms is, this guy has a motor. And that basically means they just don't give up. They don't ever stop and don't ever give up. I think that's not particularly unique, but I think it is very important in this industry. You're going to get beat up and you're going to get bloodied, and that's okay. Like, you should realize that. That's actually positive, and that means you're on the path to success. That's a mentality that I carry.
Absolutely. Next question. What was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing that you picked out from that book?
I honestly, I read like 10 books at a time. So, Principles by Ray Dalio is a book that I just read. I mean, there's just nugget after nugget in that book. But I think just broadly, I think for me, it's very important to have a solid foundation of values. And from there, I can make decisions about what I want to do with my time, with my life, where I want to invest my energy. And so that book for me has been very helpful, just as a resource guide to kind of establishing a strong set of values, and then holding yourself accountable to what you said was important to you.
Yeah, that's a great book. I love that book. That's a great book. I think he has it free now on an app. I just downloaded that recently, where you could just read the book free. And yeah. Okay. Last question. So like you said, you obviously running Driven Capital, your company, you're investing nationwide. You're doing a terrific job. Obviously spending time with your wife, enjoying beautiful California. What do you do for fun?
Well, I have two young boys. I have a 4-year-old, and Sully will be 2 May 5th, actually. So 2 young boys that keep us really busy. They're a lot of fun. And I have the privilege of working from home. So they often come in and join me, and there's just nothing better for me than being able to be present for them at this, at this point in their lives. And they, so that's what I do for fun. Uh, I don't have, I don't have a ton of other time as parents of young kids know, outside of hanging out with family.
Yep, my daughter is gonna be 2 in June, and yeah, and we just have one, so I can even imagine what having 2 of my daughter would look like. Yeah, it's
It's
a lot of
fun.
fun.
It's
Yeah, it
fun.
is.
It's busy.
It's yes, you get busy. So Matt, thank you so much. If there's a fly on the wall thinking, wow, I like this Matt guy, left a fantastic job to really pursue his dream. I want to connect with him. I have a strong listenership in California. So if there's somebody out there or maybe somebody across the nation that wants to reach out to you, what is the best place for folks to connect with you?
Yeah, and we have investors all over the place. We have some international investors as well. But Matt at drivencap.com, M-A-T-T, drivencap.com. Cap is short for capital. Driven Capital Partners is the name of the business. And yeah, reach out. I'd love to chat with you and just see if we're aligned. Most important thing for us is we like to get to know our investors and make sure that we feel like we're aligned in terms of values and expectations. And so yeah, absolutely would love to chat with anyone if you have questions or want to talk about what we're doing.
Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. Learned a ton myself. I'm really happy you came to the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ola. I appreciate it.
Wow, that was an awesome show with Matt. I mean, I still cannot believe that Matt left his eye-paying tech job to go into real estate. It's just amazing what, one can learn from the stories of others who are trying to do the same thing that we're trying to do. So I think this is just an amazing story that we should not overlook, that we should basically, ponder on it, think about it. What can I take out from this story? How can this help me in my journey? And for some people, it might not actually be you quitting your job. It could just be you, picking on one thing that Matt said, maybe his unconventional way of investing. Maybe you have, a relationship somewhere else in the country that you can start to leverage to start buying in that market, right? So I just really think that was a good one. I just wanted to use this little moment to just say thank you so much for those who are listening to the show. This show is actually growing month by month. I really appreciate all the support. One thing I always want to ask for is your reviews. So if you like the show or if you like a particular episode, just go on iTunes or just go in the show notes below and just click on the reviews and you just give us a review and just some feedback on the show. I cannot over emphasize how the reviews on iTunes really helps the show. So if you're a Dwell listener, you've been listening for some time, or maybe you just started listening, please do, give us a rating and review. And then, if you're on YouTube, obviously subscribe and, share this content with people that you think it might help their life. That's what I try to do every week is, speak to people, get good content, edit, promote so that the story of real estate investing can get to more people. In life, they say you don't know what you don't know. So you might think you know so much, but then when you realize there's something else, like real estate investing, you're like, oh my goodness, I wish I knew this like 10 years or 5 years ago. So, don't don't be greedy with the content. Share the content, send it to your friends, post it on social media so other people can know not just about this show but obviously real estate investing and how that can help them towards their financial freedom. Again, thank you so much, guys. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support for this strong community of Dwell listeners. Thank you.